Yes.
Hello.
Thierry Dedieu of the French CFDT Trade Union Confederation is with us. Thank you.
Good evening.
And just back from covering the G20 summit in Cannes, minus the suntan, France 24 International Affairs Editor Douglas Herbert. How are you, sir?
Good evening.
By the way, you too can weigh in on the sunny side of the news on the France 24 Debate Facebook page and on Twitter, where our handle is @FrancoisF24. What we're about to show you is not sunny. In fact, the following chart is not for the faint of heart. When Italian bonds hit the devilish sum of 6.66%, it's clear that markets no longer believe in Italy's ability to save itself. The markets, Douglas Herbert, don't believe in Italy's ability to save itself. You're just back from the G20, most powerful nations on earth. Do the politicians believe that Europe can save itself?
Well, they're definitely trying to put on a good show of believing that they believe in something. It's clear that, no, the markets, you're absolutely right, have zero confidence in this. I mean, you see it every time you think you have some sort of solution, however piecemeal it may be. Right away, the investors weigh in, and usually what they have to say is no good. And the chart you just showed is pointing that out. But the leaders there were really in crisis management mode. I mean, you know, we went into this summit talking about how this was supposed to be Nicolas Sarkozy's swan song, his shining moment, you know, the French host of the G20 taking the stage, trying to hark back, I suppose, to those days in 2009, early in the financial crisis, where you'll remember Sarkozy gathered all the Euro leaders at the French presidential palace. He was able to sort of showcase himself as the president who had everything in control. This time it was really a picture mostly of disarray and of people, most of the leaders, the sense you got was everyone trying to put a brave face on a very bad situation, but not really being able to pull it off because the non-European leaders there, right up to the Chinese president Hu Jintao, were basically saying, no way, Jose, we're not giving you any cash right now. Europe, get your own act together because right now you don't have it.
All right, most people's eyes glaze over when you start to talk of bond spreads, Olivier Lecomte. When you see the numbers here approaching 6.7% here, can you explain to us, how bad is it? What does that mean?
Well, it means more a question of credibility than a question of real economic situation. I think that the situation of Italy is not that bad, I mean, especially compared to Greece. But what we've seen over the last 6 or 12 months is some incapacity to solve the situation, to propose credible and visible measures in order to improve the situation of various countries and of the Eurozone as a whole. If you keep in mind that the Eurozone itself has a almost flat current account balance, it means that Eurozone, consolidated or Eurozone, doesn't have to borrow money from outside. And you see that at the same time, we have this kind of spread. It just shows that the governance of the Eurozone and the credibility of the European leaders is quite not strong, but feeble and very low. And that's a problem we've had to face with for the last weeks and months, and I guess it will go on for at least some months again. Yeah.
Marcus Kerber, do you agree that there's real political credibility which explains these imbalances?
Well, the case of Berlusconi is a very severe case. Having a prime minister in a country which has a heavy burden of debt is another burden, is an additional burden. It concerns the credibility of a country to face up to a situation which is difficult, which means a challenge by the market. So what Italy has to do as quickly as possible is a government which is reputed by experts and which are able to incarnate the virtue of austerity policy in the long run before it comes to a Greek or a Greek-like situation. But all the fuss about Italy, which is an economically extremely sound and sane country, distracts attention from public finances in France. Let me remind you of the fact that the primary surplus of Italian public finance is in sharp contrast to the primary deficit of French finance. That is to say, the result of the budget before serving debt in France is still negative, whereas Italy has a surplus there. So the problem of Italian finance is mainly the enormous burden of debt, and that's why any little change in the yield brings repercussions which can be fatal. And that's why we need, in the common European interest, as quickly as possible, a new Italian government. There are talented people in Italian politics. There are talented people in Italian business. And I think, as much as I know, names are already mentioned which have succeeded in finance and business and which are supposed to succeed as well in politics. I don't want to go any further.
Thierry Dedieu, what worries you more, Italy or France?
Well, I mean, as far as Italy is concerned, what we saw also with Greece, what we are facing now, it's really a lack of European policy. I mean, we got a common currency, but still we don't have any budgetary or we don't have any economic policy, common policy. And of course, what we are facing now, that we have to try to, let's say, to deliver in order to help certain country to recover from their situation, because we don't have any European policy. And so what we were calling on as a European trade union movement is to have a real economic and budgetary policy at the European level. If not, we will be facing what we are facing now in Greece or Italy, maybe France tomorrow. I mean, our debt is huge. I mean, we cannot challenge the fact that our debt is huge. And yet, the deficit that we are facing now every year is still very important. Although we are going to comment on the French austerity measures that Mr. Fillon announced today. But anyway, I think that really the solution, if solution exists, is at the European level and nowhere else.
All right, the solution at the European level. We're going to show you another harrowing chart. This one courtesy of The Economist, put out, by the way, just before Halloween. Parental guidance is advised for what the magazine calls the Tower of Terror. The makeup of the European Stability Fund. That's that firewall we were talking about at the outset. Douglas Herbert, looking at this chart, that little red arrow in the middle there, that's
the fund.
That's how much is in the kitty right now.
But actually not, because yes, we keep saying 440 billion euros in the kitty, but look at Greece. Half of that money, about half of it, has already been committed to Greece. If you want to talk about the money basically
so all the part that's in gold there, you can write it off.
Write off all the part in gold there. It's really about a little less than 250 billion, really, that is right now still viable funds in the EFSF. And this has been the whole question. You know, you talk about building the firewall. How could you possibly build, based on the commitments or the lack of commitments that we've heard from the European leaders and outside countries, emerging markets, how do you possibly get to those $1 trillion and $2 trillion levels? Because, I mean, right now it's all based on guarantees, insurance guarantees and everything. This is what we call gossamer. This is not real money in there. This is not a credible firewall. You could talk up this stability fund as much as you want, but it seems like, I think you'd agree that when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, this isn't going to be the solution. This won't be the backstop to rescue Europe. If you had the much bigger fry, the Italies, the Spains, if their finances came toppling down and Europe had to come to the rescue, you need something. You need the European Central Bank. That is really what it comes down to. You need them as a backstop. And yet, for the time being, we don't have that commitment from the ECB.
Olivier Leconte, how genuine is the threat of Italy? Europe having to bail out Italy and adding to that tower of terror there.
Well, I don't believe in this scenario for the moment, provided, as was mentioned by everybody here around the table and in Berlin, provided that Italy probably has a new government which can bring credibility. We're all talking about one single and key word, which is credibility. It's not a question of one fund or another. It's a question of are we able to announce something credible for the next 5 or 10 years and something which is coordinated at the European level? Can the German, for example, make
hang on a second.
Yeah.
This is something coordinated. This idea of a European Stability Fund. Give credit to the politicians. At least they're trying something.
Yeah, but it's only a temporary solution. I mean, the FSF is only done to quiet the market for some time, while we set up policies for the next years. It's not the finance solution. We know that because the FESF is based on more debt from the participating states. So it means that you can only use it as a temporary cure and to alleviate the problem for the moment. But on the long run, you will have to announce some credible fiscal and growth policies.
Bad news, all this for a continent that makes up more than a quarter of world economic activity is, of course, bad news for everyone else on this fair planet. So, how about chipping into that European Stability Fund? That was the question put Friday at the G20 to Brazil's president.
I don't have any intention of making a direct contribution to the European Financial Stability Fund. Why should I, when they themselves haven't done it?
All right. That's pretty definite. Marcus Kerber, she does go on to say, Dilma Rousseff, that she is willing to give money to the IMF. How did that go down in Germany, though? That kind of talk from the so-called from so-called what are the so-called nations that are in the BRICS?
Yes, we are extremely worried, not to say astounded, by the fact that not only the French president has talked to the Chinese prime minister, but that the Director General of the European Financial Stability Facility, Mr. Regling, a German man, at least he has a German passport, has gone to China in order to discuss the eventuality of issuing Chinese-denominated bonds, which is a total absurdity. And now the very clear comment from the number one of Brazil. So I think monetary policy is about sovereignty. And we cannot solve the European debt crisis by having recourse to foreign nations, which have perhaps strategical second thoughts. This is perhaps not the case of Brazil, but certainly the case of China. So I think we should very quickly let Mr. Sarkozy, as well as the German director of the European Financial Stability Facility, Mr. Regling, know that that neither the one nor the other has a mandate to lead negotiations in these two directions. Apart from that, let me say or make a fundamental comment. The fundamental problems of the Eurozones are about industrial divergence and a differential, a spread of industrial competitiveness. You cannot solve this, even not in a short time, by creating new debt, irrespective of how you create or generate the debt. This can only be fundamentally solved. I don't like the word final solution because this is a semantic which we have already had in history. We can only solve this by not only buying time, but splitting the Eurozone and making a conclusion, drawing a conclusion, which is hard reality, which is hardcore reality that the European Monetary Union have led to a divergence, and not contrary to what the Brussels technocrats have predicted, to a natural convergence of all member states.
Hang on, so
let's take this for granted and organize the reshaping of the Eurozone instead of believing in an illusion, the illusion that with these different debt vehicles we can solve an industrial problem. This is not the case. We
so
can
when you split
totally the public finances.
When you split the Eurozone, Marcus Kerber, who do you leave out?
Well, first of all, you have to break a taboo. It has taken 18 months to break the taboo to get Greece out. I said from the very beginning of the crisis on, let us have the courage to face reality. And I spoke my mind and I said Greece has never really belonged to the European Monetary Union. The country has cheated herself into the European Monetary Union. It has totally underperformed, and it is no longer a worthy candidate for being a member after a long pause. Let us work about flexible membership. I said the same thing for Portugal. Portugal is monetarily imprisoned. It is trapped in a monetary costume which hinders the country to catch up with competitiveness in the years to come. So we have to reshape the Eurozone. We have two groups, fundamentally. We have the trade surplus countries, which for the time being give the currency some creditworthiness, which are, apart from Germany, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Finland, Austria. And we have the trade deficits and the balance of payment deficit countries, which are, first of all, the countries I've already mentioned, but which are, to a certain degree, as well, France. The problem is to which group France belongs. I think the real problem of the Eurozone is French politics. Don't let us forget that in the years of relative boom, in 2007, 2008, President Sarkozy not only went to ECOFIN to tell them that balanced budget is good for everybody, but not for France. But in 1 year, within 1 year, believe it or not, we had an increase of debt in France of 5% in comparison to the gross national product. This is enormous. This is a Greek benchmark. So today,
Greek benchmark. Markus Kerber, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to rebound off what you say and take a closer look on France, which, let's recall, unveiled austerity measures this Monday. You're watching the France 24 debate.
They choose between dying of sulfur poisoning or dying from hunger. On the Indonesian island of Java, in the heart of the Kawah Ijen volcano, these men work 12 hours a day in appalling conditions, mining sulfur in the form of yellow crystals which they raise from the depths of the earth to supply Indonesia's factories. They risk their lives daily, descending into hell in return for just a few dollars they need to get by. Reporters, tomorrow, 1:40 p.m. Paris time, on France 24.